Well, despite last-minute attempts to call off the African National Congress's Eastern Cape elective conference for the 7th time, it has officially commenced. Oscar Mabuyane and Babalo Madikizela are top contenders vying for the position of Provincial Chairperson. Another two big contenders for the top 5 have received the green light from the Tuli House following potential corruption allegations. Terrace Ntutu and Olile Kompela, who are contesting Secretary and Deputy Chairperson, have been reinstated. Now, to discuss the conference and the latest developments, I'm joined by political analyst Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Dr. Breakfast, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us. I mean, I think after the 2017 elective conference, the infamous Festival of Chairs, it's quite important that the ANC Eastern Cape managed to successfully pull off this conference.
Yes, Ntokozo. I think they have no choice but to ensure that the outcome is credible. However, I think the beauty of democracy is that when all is said and done, the losers, they need to accept that they have lost for purposes of legitimacy. And that begs the question that whoever loses, is that person going to accept the outcome? I doubt very much if that is going to be the case. I'll tell you why, because my prediction is that whoever loses, the results will be challenged. For instance, if Oscar loses, I think he might have sympathizers at H2 who might try to nullify the outcome, because I think there was a tension in the build-up to the conference between the PTT and Paul Mashatile. On the other hand, if Madikizela loses, I think also he will challenge the outcome of the conference, because both factions, they believe that the winner takes all.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the credibility of the conference, Dr. Breakfast, and whether or not the outcome will be accepted by either vying factions. The ANC's response to issues of disputes and issues around credibility is this new centralized membership system. Do you think the party is putting way too much clout, way too much credence on this new system, or is it truly helping the African National Congress sort of iron out these issues that they have, factional issues, issues around disputes arising in these sensitive times when looking at elective conferences?
Although you cannot be a judge in your own case, the challenge is that even the people at H2, they have a vested interest in the outcomes of these conferences. No wonder some people do question their objectivity. That's why also there have been a number of branches that have felt let down by the internal processes of the ANC. That's why some branches, they approach courts, to preside over such disputes, as opposed to, exhausting internal party mechanisms.
Well, I think the other thing that we absolutely have to talk about, Dr. Breakfast, is the front runners for the position of Provincial Chairperson. We've got convener Oscar Mabuyane, as you've mentioned. We've also got Babalo Madikizela. Oscar Mabuyane possibly winning this conference with the majority of the votes. What will that signify for President Cyril Ramaphosa's own potential bid come December at the National Elective Conference?
Also, let me kick off by saying that there seems to be a missing link in this discussion. Because on the one hand, if you examine the other contender, Madikizela, in public he says that he supports Ramaphosa. But in private, I doubt very much if he means that. Because when you examine his political lexicon or language, he doesn't strike me as a proponent of the Tumamina Brigade. He sounds like a strong proponent of radical economic transformation. There's nothing wrong about that. That is a matter of choice. No wonder even the Ramaphosa faction, they don't trust him. That's why they've tried their level best to untwist him, to withdraw. But if Oscar wins, that will boost up the candidacy of Ramaphosa to come back for a second term. But Madikizela, in my view, has nothing to lose. I mean, the guy is still at the tender age. If he loses, he can still bounce back with a bang in future. But if Oscar loses, there are a lot of people in the other faction who have broken hearts, who are holding a grudge against him. I think they might want him to be removed as a premier if he loses. But if he wins, it will be good for him because he will still hold on to that position.
Well, I mean, at some point, Dr. Breakfast, all roads will eventually lead to that December National Elective Conference later on this year. The Eastern Cape province being one of the, if I'm not mistaken, the third largest province when we look at matters around the ANC and voting issues, how central or how important a role will it play in terms of the leadership that might emerge out of that December elective conference?
Well, it's the biggest, or one of the biggest provinces, of the ANC. So it will have a voice, and also it will have a say in terms of what kind of leadership does the ANC need, chanting a way forward. At the same time, I think that the Ramaphosa faction cannot afford to lose, this particular conference, because if they lose this conference, I think the chances of Ramaphosa coming back will be dealt with a blow. So this is that's why even Ramaphosa himself, in the build-up to this conference, he came down here in person to facilitate the smoothness of the election of Oscar Mabuyane. So this is a do or die for him. So I describe this conference as a geopolitical battleground.
That's very interesting. Lastly, Dr. Breakfast, I want to discuss just the general optics of the ANC this year. It is an all-important year for the African National Congress, it being a national elective conference year. We've already seen quite a few provincial conferences be held successfully at that. A lot of the conveners, owing that success to the centralized membership system that, of course, was introduced this time round. It's managed to some degree to clear out a lot of these disputes that we've seen. We recently saw the ANC NEC, the highest decision-making body within the party, sort of flesh out the step-aside rule and further cement how it functions as a rule, as a policy for the African National Congress. So in general, in terms of optics and reputationally, how is the ANC looking at present when, ramped up against other parties, and how the South African society is possibly viewing its movements as it heads to this all-important elective conference in December?
Ntokozo, the possibility that the ANC might lose power in future or in the upcoming general elections is not far-fetched unless the ANC has a change of heart or changes gear. And I'm saying this deliberately because if we look at the electoral performance of the ANC last year, if the general elections were held last year, it would have meant that the ANC would have lost power because it got below 50%. I don't think that it is going to do better, in my opinion, because you can see that the conflicts are escalating day in and day out. They have lost a number of municipalities, coalition formations, the order of the day. I guess, the political longevity of liberation movements, it tends to be affected by issues of institutionalization of corruption.
All right. Well, Dr. Breakfast, thank you so much. We are going to leave our conversation there. That's a political analyst, Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast, helping us to cast our eyes toward the ANC Eastern Cape Elective Conference that kick-started yesterday.